You ever walk into your own kitchen and feel like a ghost in it? Like you know where everything is, what to do, how to clean, cook, organize, smile, but none of it feels like it belongs to you anymore? That was me. And I didn't even realize how far gone I was until he stayed behind after dinner. His name was Mark. My husband Dan had invited him over, colleague, teammate, something like that. Dan always did that. Brought people into our house like it was a hotel lobby, polite, brief, efficient. He ate, smiled, said he had a headache, and went upstairs, like he always does, like he had somewhere more important to be than with me. Mark offered to help with dishes. I didn't think anything of it. Just being polite, I figured. But he didn't move like a guest. He moved like someone who noticed. I was scraping plates when he said, "Do you always do all of this alone?" I laughed, a small, practiced sound. "Old habit," I said, but he didn't laugh. He just stood behind me, quiet, watching. There was something about the way he didn't speak that made the silence louder. And when his hand brushed against my hip, barely, like he was testing if I'd flinch, I didn't. I stood still, not because I was scared, but because I didn't trust what I'd do if I moved. I'm 41. I teach literature part-time. My marriage is in its 15th year. Stable, predictable, safe, and painfully quiet. Most nights, Dan and I feel more like calendar partners and lovers. Everything is scheduled. Everything makes sense. Everything is nothing. Mark didn't belong in that silence. But that's what made him dangerous. He stood there behind me, said gently, "You never stop moving." And it hit me harder than it should have, because he was right. If I stopped moving, I might notice how invisible I'd become. Not just to Dan, but to myself. His hand didn't grip. It hovered, patient, waiting, like he was giving me the final choice. And I gave it, not in words, in stillness. I didn't walk away. I didn't shut it down. I just let the air shift between us. It wasn't about lust. It wasn't about revenge. It was about something I didn't even have a name for, something that had been building slowly inside me over years of being polite, functional, and unseen. I felt his breath near my neck, slow, intentional, and something deep inside my ribs clicked open, not in hunger, in memory, of what it was like to be touched like I mattered. There was nothing frantic about it, no rush. He didn't lean in because he wanted to possess. He leaned in like he saw me standing on a ledge and just wanted to know what it felt like to reach out. I bent forward to pick up a fallen napkin. His hand stayed steady. That was the moment I knew. I wouldn't stop this. I wasn't even sure I could, because it didn't feel like I was betraying something. It felt like I was returning to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. After, I stayed there at the table, dress wrinkled, hands against the wood, not ashamed, just aware of how easy it had been, how human. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid next to Dan, staring at the ceiling while he snored softly. He didn't even ask if I'd come back downstairs. He probably assumed I cleaned the counters, turned off the lights, did the usual routine. Because that's what I do. I'm the one who finishes things, who closes up, who makes it all neat. But last night, I didn't. I left the wine glass out, a napkin on the floor, and no one noticed. The next day, I stood in the pantry holding a box of couscous, trying to remember when I stopped feeling real. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 little ones. I reheated coffee I didn't drink and stared at the floor where my heel had left a scuff. Proof that I was there, that something had happened, that I had been seen. Mark wasn't supposed to come back. But of course he did. A community fundraiser that Wednesday. Dan stayed home. I volunteered. Said I needed a change of pace. The truth? I needed space. Somewhere I didn't have to explain the silence I carried like luggage. I wore something loose. Nothing special. Just safe. But Mark noticed me anyway. Across the lot, through a crowd, he saw me like he had radar for the parts of me I kept hidden. He stepped near, not too close. Said, "You didn't reply to my message." I didn't turn. I didn't know what to say. "You could have said you hated it." I didn't. He paused. "You could have said it meant nothing." I finally looked at him, but it didn't. We didn't talk much more. We didn't need to. Some silences aren't empty. They're full of everything you're too afraid to name. Later, when we were stacking chairs near the entrance, he took one from my hands. His fingers brushed mine. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It meant everything. He looked at me and asked, "Why didn't you stop me?" I could have lied. I could have said I was weak, confused, tired. But I didn't. I said the truth. Because for the first time in years, someone touched me like I was still there. That night, I heard a knock. Not at the front door. The side one, off the kitchen. The one no one uses. I opened it. He stood there, no smile, no explanation. Just waiting. I stepped aside. He walked in. We didn't speak. In the laundry room. He turned me gently. No rush. No pressure. Just something steady. Something real. His hands were slow. Not hesitant. Careful. Like he didn't want to ruin the moment by making it something it wasn't. We didn't say goodbye. He left through the same door. He came in. I stood there, still smelling like lavender and heat. The room looked the same, but I wasn't. Later, I sat in the car outside our house. Porch light flickering. I'd asked Dan to fix it last week. He forgot. And for once, I was grateful. I didn't want to be seen. Inside, Dan was asleep on the couch. TV still on. Remote in his hand. He looked peaceful. And for the first time in years, I felt afraid not of him, but of the truth. He would never know who I was again. Not fully. I walked past him like a guest. In the hallway, I saw my reflection in the glass frame. I looked too, quickly, and something caught in my throat. I wasn't crying. I wasn't grieving. I was recognizing someone I hadn't seen in a long time. And maybe that's the real story. Not about what happened between Mark and me, but about what had stopped happening long before. About what we ignore until someone notices. About what we give away just to feel like we still exist. I didn't plan to fall, but I did. And now I live with the truth. Not every fall is a mistake. Some are just reminders that we're still alive.